You're listening to Stand Out Get Noticed, episode 177. Hi there, Rockstar, and welcome to Stand Out Get Noticed. I'm Christina Canters, speaker, coach, and founder of The C Method, where I help high-performing professionals and business leaders to have more confidence, more influence, and impact in the workplace through building powerful communication skills. Learn more at thecmethod.com. Each week on the podcast, we address a different topic to help you build a success mindset, present yourself with confidence, build strong relationships, and be an all-round better human. I would love to invite you to join our community over on Facebook. Search for the group The C Method Rockstars or go to thecmethod.com/community. We cannot wait to meet you. All links mentioned in this episode, including the show notes, are in the podcast description in your app. Now, do you identify as shy? Or maybe you get nervous in social situations? Or do you have a debilitating fear of being rejected or people not liking you? My guest this week has experienced all of these things to the point where he was feeling incredibly lonely and depressed. Mike Macapinlac is originally from the Philippines. He grew up in Saudi Arabia and moved to Canada. Really interesting story. And as a shy, socially awkward guy in a new country, he knew he had to make a change if he wanted to live a happy, fulfilled life. He now runs a successful business, Social Confidence Mastery, where he helps shy tech guys to develop social confidence so they can succeed in their personal, romantic, and professional lives. He also runs an awesome podcast on which I have also been lucky enough to be a guest. I will link that up in the show notes as well. So that's at socialconfidencemastery.com. So I brought Mike on because I really love his approach to helping people build confidence. And we had a conversation where he shared his story and he also shares what you can do to develop your confidence in social situations. So whether it's at a networking event, at social events, or asking someone out on a date, we talk about how to overcome your fear of rejection, as well as how to care less about what others think of you. I really enjoyed this conversation with Mike. That's Mike spelled M-Y-K-A, by the way, M-Y-K-A. And I'm sure you'll get a lot out of it too. All right, let's get to it. Let's meet the master of social confidence, Mike Macapinlac.
I was born in a small farm in the Philippines, and I was raised in Saudi Arabia. So if you know anything about both countries, they're both very conservative. Saudi Arabia, for anyone who's been there, it's a very interesting place because like they have like certain customs and traditions that didn't really apply when I moved to North America. For example, in Saudi, it's very impolite to have prolonged eye contact when you're talking to people. It's considered rude, right? So when I came to Canada, I had all these preconceived notions of what I thought would be acceptable and not acceptable. And because, like when you move to a different country, you don't really get educated on how to assimilate, right? Like they teach, I learned about the Canadian anthem and like the language and all that stuff, but no one really taught me all the social norms. So like the first few years being in a new country was a huge struggle for me, for a number of reasons. Number one, when I was 16, Christina, you wouldn't believe this, but I used to weigh 200 pounds, right? And at 5'5", I was a big kid. I had a 36-inch waist. I had really bad social anxiety. In fact, I used to eat my lunch in a bathroom stall back in high school because I was too terrified to mingle with the other kids. And back then I didn't speak.
Oh, like in the movies.
There you go, right? Yeah. And back then I didn't speak English too. So it was quite overwhelming, like it was a lot to learn and absorb um, for my first year being in a new country. So I mean, like, thank God, I mean, even at a young age, I'm able to process large information at any given moment. So I took a step back and I started paying attention to those who are succeeding socially, and to me, like, that's kind of what sparked my interest to learn more about social dynamics, because like there are people out there who are confident, social, and charismatic, and I wasn't, and I wanted to know what they were doing so I can emulate what they were doing too, hoping that I can get a similar outcome. So that's kind of my background.
And Mike, can you take me back to the moment when you realized that you had to make this change? Like what was going on at that point in
Oh
time?
my God, Christina, huge pain, loneliness. I was just mad at myself. I was frustrated. I was staying at home Friday, Saturday, not because I didn't want to go out. Every bone in my body wanted to leave the house and socialize, but it felt like there was a glass wall that separated me from the people that I wanted to meet simply because I didn't know what to do. It was one. Imagine if I bought you a car, right? Imagine if I bought you a car with a manual transmission, and all your life you've only known to drive automatic. You would sit in that car, and you have every desire to like drive this car, but because no one taught you how to operate that car, you won't be able to do it. And that's how I felt. Like I had this desire to connect with people, but because I was so unaware of what to do, um I just didn't know how, and that made me frustrated. I had all this, like energy, and I didn't know how to channel it. So that's kind of, yeah, it came from a really painful experience of just not wanting to be lonely anymore. Like I felt like I missed out on so many opportunities to connect with people, and I knew that I couldn't keep going the direction that I was going. I
Mm.
had to do something and make a change, and that's when that's how my journey really started.
And tell me, like, when you did go out, when you were around people, this is before you build up your social confidence. What were some of the stories, or what were the voices in your head telling you when you were in those situations?
Oh, a lot of it was about my appearance. I genuinely
Okay.
thought people wouldn't accept me because I look different. Like I was 5'5", I had dark skin, I had almond eyes. Like I looked different than most people. Like I just felt like I wasn't enough. I felt like people wouldn't accept me because I look different, right? So that's a big part of my story. The other one was what I had to say isn't important, so I had a lot of people pleasing tendencies when I was younger. Even my tonality, right? Like, is everything okay? Like, I would always be like very catering to people, wanting to be accepted,
Mm.
wanting to just be part of a group, and unfortunately I got involved with a lot of really bad groups when I was younger. Like I got involved with a bad crowd just because I wanted to be accepted, and even though they did things that I didn't really want it to do, I did it anyway just so I would fit in. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And then when you started this journey of, educating yourself and opening up your eyes to what could be, what were some of the first few things that you did? Like, who did you look to, and what did you learn?
It's funny. So a lot of my education back then just came from books. Like I basically bought like every book that I can get around confidence, how to be charismatic, body language, first impression. But my first breakthrough actually happened when I had a bartending job. So, I had my engineering job during the day, and then, during the weekend I would bartend at this nightclub, right? Just because it's fun, like it's a nice escape from my boring day job. And then I actually met two guys who were running a company teaching social dynamics. And when I found out that that's what they did, and back then it was like a huge topic of interest, I did everything I could to partake in what they were doing. So at first they took me on as an intern. Like I did everything I could to really earn a spot to become one of their coaches. So I got trained to be a coach at a really young age, and we traveled all over Canada teaching these boot camps. Like helping guys improve their social skills, and that was my first big breakthrough. And that experience opened up many doors for me. And since then I've been able to connect with some of the top influencers in this space. Just like like networking, right? Like once it's one of those things where once you meet someone and they like you, they start introducing you to other people who can help you out, and then they like you too, and they start introducing you to other people. And that's kind of what happened. I had a lot of formal and informal mentors in my life who kind of paved the way and showed me what was possible. It was one of those things, right? Like you can't unsee something that you've seen, so like seeing these guys in action, the way they interact with people, the way they conducted themselves in many different social settings, it gave me like not just a tangible role model, but it made the whole process more believable, because some of these guys who I met, they were very average looking. It defied my belief that, you have to be like 6'1" and good looking and be ripped or whatever. Some of these guys, like, they look very average, and they are very socially successful, and it's because of the way they make other people feel and the way they feel about themselves. Like, when they look at themselves in the mirror, like, they see themselves like bigger than life, and I'm like, oh my god, like I want to think like that. I want to behave like that. So I was blessed, Christina. I had a lot of formal and informal mentors throughout my journey.
Yeah. And look, I've experienced that as well. Like surrounding yourself with people who are at the level that you want to
For
be,
sure.
like surrounding yourself with that level, with people who are at that level of
Totally.
success is absolutely
Mhm.
critical to your own development. So when you saw these guys who are behaving this way, thinking this way, it's not, I mean, it doesn't usually happen overnight where we can just flick a switch and all of a sudden be confident.
Mhm.
It takes time.
Mhm.
What were some of the things what were some of the things that you started to do to then become more like that in your own mind?
It's funny. So my journey started off learning about external tactics, right? Like what to say, what to do, how to behave, how to stand, how to dress, all these things. And while I did get some results, um, the real growth happened when I took a break from all the external stuff and I started down a more spiritual path, like really, really like getting clear about who I am as a person, like asking the tough questions, like outside of all these things, who am I? What do I want? What do I believe in? What are my
Mm,
core values? How do I see myself? What are stories that what are the stories that I'm telling myself? Like how do I want to be remembered? Like thinking bigger than what's happening around me. To me, Christina, like when I started down that path of just like getting more in alignment from within first, like really getting rooted internally, that's when things really changed for me. Because like back then I was like very animated, right? I was like big, loud, like borderline obnoxious. And I didn't know how to calibrate myself in every situation. And it wasn't until I started a mindfulness practice, meditation, gratitude, journaling, taking a technology break, like once or twice a week, spending time in nature, being around spiritual people, doing yoga. To me, Christina, that's what made all the difference.
yeah, I cannot agree more. Because oftentimes, all of these insecurities that we have, they're stemming from, something within us. It's all internal, absolutely. And this is
For
something that
sure.
I there are a lot of coaches out there in the sort of public speaking space that focus on the externals as well. Like, here's what you
Hmm.
say, here's how you move your hands, here's how you do this. And really, it's got to come from the mind. It's going to come from inside. Because when you're in a
Yeah,
good place, then all those other things start to flow more naturally. So
for
I
sure.
wholeheartedly agree.
And you can only fake your external behavior for so long, right? Like, at some point your non-verbal behavior will give you away. So I think yes, it's very important to understand how to stand, how to move your hand, where to look, all these kinds of things. But I think the work will become much easier if you start from within first, like seeing yourself as a confident and charismatic and someone worthwhile getting to know. Then the body language becomes a lot easier.
Absolutely. And I think, yeah, learning to love yourself is absolutely key to that as
Totally.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So, Mike, let's talk about. I really appreciate you sharing your story, and I think it's really important for people to hear that so that they know that, then if they're feeling in a similar way, they're not the only ones. They know that they're not the
Oh
only
my
ones
God.
going through it.
Yes, for sure. And you know what, Christina? Like, I share that story openly now because like, I'm sure you've heard of the saying before, right? Like, you can't take someone to a place you've never been to. And to me, like, the work that I've done the last 5 years, like, um, making peace with the parts of myself that I used to not like, right? Like, really, diving deep and forgiving every part of myself that I used to resent for, like. And to me, that's why I have so much compassion when I work with my students. Like, I have so many guys who are like depressed. Like, there's one guy in particular who enrolled earlier this year. He was suicidal. He was gonna take his life because he was so lonely, and I had nothing but compassion for him because I know what it's like to be that depressed and lonely that you just want to give up. So I think yeah, like vulnerability can really bond people deeper because it makes you more relatable, you know?
When you do have a client like that who is at the very bottom, rock bottom, what's one of the first things that you work with them on? Is it that the asking those big questions?
The first thing that I get them to work on is so people are depressed. Uh, from my understanding and from my experience, you know, mind you, I'm not a medical professional, right? So everything that I'm sharing right now around this topic is anecdotal. I just want to make that clear, okay? So
Absolutely.
so people who are depressed, typically it's because they've trained their minds to focus more on what's going wrong in their lives than what's going right. So the first thing that I get them to do with those people is to just like have a daily habit of meditation, like take a moment, you know, even like taking a moment in the morning and doing like 5 deep breaths, you know, slowing down your breathing, slowing down your thoughts, and then after that, like writing down 3 things that are going well in your life. And believe it or not, Christina,
Mm.
after a week of doing that, I mean, those guys are like, wow, I feel so much better. It's because they're not they're just like they're letting their minds take over what's happening in them, right? But now that they have this conscious practice to do that, like, hey, maybe I should take the time to recognize the things that are going well in my life, you know. And they're like, after a week of doing that, and I keep telling them, you can't repeat the same thing you mentioned, like it has to be different. And after a week of doing that, that's 21 things that you're thankful for, like that changes people's
Mm.
perspectives.
Yeah, breaking that pattern is so powerful.
For sure.
Absolutely. Shifting that
Hmm.
focus. Um, Mike, let's dive deeper into more of the sort of techniques or how to's so people can walk away with some
For
things
sure.
to implement.
Hmm.
Um, one thing that I wanted to ask you about particularly was something that I found to be most effective for building my own confidence is to stop caring about what others think of me. And it's really easy to say this, I'll just stop caring about what others think of you. But it's not so easy to implement. Do you have some, tips or techniques that you can share to help people to overcome this or manage it, this fear of what others think?
Of course. So that's actually a really good question. So the reason why most people care so much about what other people think is because they don't know what they want. For me, and again, this is totally anecdotal. This is just from my experience and from the guys that I've worked with. Because most guys that I work with, they haven't stopped and asked themselves, what do I want and where do I want my life to go? It's easy for them to get influenced by other people. You know what I mean? Like it's so easy to look at what other people are doing because they've never taken the time to like define their own core values and create their own direction. So they're like, it's easy for them to like get taken off their path because they don't know they don't know what which path they're on. You know what I mean? So
Mm,
so it starts with like getting clear about like what do you believe in, what's important to you, what do you value, where's your life going, what do you want, what kind of people do you want to meet, like just get clear on who you are and what you want and where you want to go. And just that step alone. And mind you, like this doesn't have to be like an overnight thing, you know, like spend some time in nature, you know, like take a take a full day off and just like go for a walk, have a journal with you, sit at a park and in silence and just write down, what do I want? And whatever inspiration comes up to you, write it down, and it becomes this like ongoing process. And then next thing you know, you have your own like life compass that's directing you in the right direction.
love it. So then if you're speaking with someone and you're talking and you're confident in what you want and what you know to be true within
Mm-hmm.
you, then that's going to, I'm just trying to paraphrase to see if I've understood this correctly. So if you know exactly what you want and you're talking in a way where you speak with complete conviction,
Yeah.
it's going to then help to maybe not remove completely, but reduce then your fears is what they're thinking. But what if you are fearful about, you might know what you want,
Mm-hmm.
but what if you're still fearful about what other people think about that? What if you're not? Does that make
It makes
sense?
perfect sense. So to me, that's an interesting question. So for example, right? When I used to be friends with the wrong people, I felt like I couldn't be myself because I feel like we don't see life the same way. So one of the best things that I've done for myself is to actually remove myself from that really harmful environment and look for new friends who see life the same way I do. Because when I'm around the right people who believe the same things that I do, then there's no convincing, right? You know what I mean? So, for
Yeah.
example, and I hear this a lot, right? Let's say one of my friends started a business, and he grew up in a very, like traditional conservative family who they're like, oh, you have to get a job, and you have to go to school, get a degree, whatever, right? And he finds it hard to be around those kinds of people, and it's because, like, look, like your your parents see life very differently than you do. So trying to convince them to see life the same way you do is going to be very difficult. Like, you just have to recognize that for what it is, and you have to find a different group. Like, it's so hard to go
Mm.
against the grain all the time, trying to convince people that, like, look, this is what I'm doing, this is what I want, right? Like trying to convince other people to change their minds, in my opinion, is one of the biggest wastes of time. Just like, find people who want the same things as you, make life easy, find a path of least resistance and just go for that. It doesn't have to be complicated, because you can't control people. You can't.
Absolutely. I remember sitting down. I met up with a couple of girlfriends who are both business owners. And as soon as we sat down, one of them goes, "Okay, ladies, what were our wins this week?" And I was like, I love this
Right.
question. And it just reminded me, like, I've got groups of friends who would never ask that
For
question.
sure.
And there's nothing wrong with that. They're just different.
Yeah.
That's not the mindset they're in of, hey, let's talk about our wins.
Of
You know what I mean? And
course.
just being around people like that is so energizing and uplifting. And you just feel like, oh my God, I can talk about my challenges and my wins openly. And I know that I'm not going to be judged because they understand me.
For sure. Yeah. So my advice around that is don't chase people, like, keep doing the thing that makes you happy. Because here's the thing, Christina, if you're living authentically, if you're living out your core values and you're fully demonstrating it, then other like-minded people will be able to recognize that, right? And they'll be able to find you quicker. But if you're this kind of person who's, trying to blend in and be a chameleon, with this person you're like this, with that person you're like that, now people are confused. It's like, are you a chicken, are you a dog, are you a goat, which one are you, right? You know what I mean? So, like, just be yourself,
Mm.
live your core values, act accordingly, and trust me when I say this, the right people will show up in your life, and those are the people who will stay, guaranteed.
Hey there, Rockstar. I want to take a quick break to share with you something really exciting that I've got coming up. Now, if you're looking to improve your confidence and skill with networking and also with speaking in front of a group in order to grow your business, put yourself out there, I am running a public speaking and networking course. Well, it's a 2-day program over a Saturday and Sunday in November. It's the 10th and 11th of November, and I'm very excited to be teaming up with clinical hypnotherapist Dr. Steve Carey. And we will be teaming up and sharing things with the group around how to present confidently, how to develop your own tailored presentation, how to create a plan to expand your business and to get more clients and get more opportunities. Also learning how to deliver your own polished presentation and learning amongst supportive, encouraging colleagues. Steve will also be covering how to overcome your anxiety and getting your head in the right place. So if you're looking to improve your skills in this area and put yourself out there, maybe you run your own business and you want to grow that and get more clients through networking and speaking, then this is for you. I will link up that event in the show notes of this episode. So go have a look at that in the description of your podcast app. So 10th and 11th of November in Melbourne. I can't wait to see you there. Okay, back to the show with Mike Macapinlack. Let's talk about
Mm.
rejection because I know this is huge for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Me included. I still, am working to overcome this fear,
Mm-hmm.
and it's scary for everyone. And I would love to hear how, like, what's your methodology for helping someone to overcome their fear of rejection?
Yeah.
How does someone start with that?
So the example that I always give here is kind of silly. One of my best friends, he's lactose intolerant, and sometimes I forget. And when we're at Starbucks, I'll offer to, like, get him a latte, right? And he's like, "Bro, like, I'm lactose intolerant. I can't have it," right? So in that situation, did he really reject me, or is it just like a mismatch of like like wants and offers? You know what I mean? And sometimes people forget that, right? And this is when, again, this conversation comes back full circle, because if you know the kind of people you want to meet, right, and you know what's important to you, you should be using that to evaluate every conversation that you have. Because here's the thing, right? For example, from a dating perspective, it doesn't matter how hot the guy or girl is, right? If you're talking to that person and both of you have nothing in common, I mean, like you should be thankful if you get rejected, because you're saving yourself a lot of time and energy, um, getting to know someone, and immediately you know that if you have nothing in common, you should be thankful you're getting rejected. That's one. Number two, the reason why most people fear rejection is because all they can think of is the worst case scenario. They don't think of the best case scenario. And here's the thing: when you approach someone and you start a conversation, both are possibilities. Things can go well and things can go badly. So one of the things that I do, let's say, for example, if I'm out and I see someone that I'm attracted to and I want to interact with, the first thing that I do is I close my eyes and I think of like other experiences that I've succeeded. I mean, don't get me wrong, like I've been rejected many times, right? The only difference between me and other people who are afraid of rejection is that I'm very quick to forget about my mistakes. I don't replay them over and over again. I learn my lesson and I forget about them. I delete them in my brain, right? So call me like optimistically delusional, but it works well for me. I only remember good things that happened to me, and that helps me become more positive and optimistic. Like, I'm sure you've met people before that are jaded, right? And that's not a very attractive energy to be around. That just means that you focus more on all the negative things that have happened to you versus the positive things. So for me, if I see someone that I want to talk to, and I get that, like that quick
The heart racing?
the heart racing, I close my eyes, I take a deep breath, I think of like a previous experience where I've been successful interacting in a very similar situation. I go back to that feeling in my head. I feel it in my body. It calms me down, and then I go.
And you know what? The fact that you are calm and relaxed will play a part in you not getting rejected as well, because
Yeah,
you'll come
and
across as being confident and relaxed and not needy or weird.
yeah, or I mean, I've also been in situations where I just said like, look, I'm really nervous coming up to you, but I just know I would regret it if I don't. And 9 times out of 10, they're like, wow, thank you for saying that.
Yes.
You can just
People always
just admit it.
appreciate a bit of honesty. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't go wrong. You can't go wrong being honest. Just be like, hey, I'm nervous, but I thought I'd talk to you anyway. Like, I mean, if someone did that to me, I'd be like, wow, thank you, I really appreciate it. I would receive it so well. You know what I mean? Like, how can you turn away someone who's being completely honest? How could you? Like, I mean,
Mm.
I can't. So
When I was single, I know this happens more in North America. I found that guys are more, they're more sort of forward with, say asking, if they can buy you a drink or asking you out. But in Australia, guys are pretty terrible at it. Like, it doesn't happen very often at all. And I
sure.
remember when I was single, and if a guy asked me to my face, hey, I think you're cute, or hey, can I buy you a drink, or hey, would you like to go out sometime? I would say yes, purely out of the fact that they had the balls to ask me face to face, because it was so rare. And like, even if it, we weren't, good for each other or whatever, it wasn't going to go anywhere. I was like, you know what, at least I'm going to give this guy like, a couple of hours of my time, purely because I'm so impressed that you actually had the balls to ask. So that was
And you never know
my
what could happen,
that
right?
was
You
no.
never know.
Absolutely. And I was always very impressed because it's just so rare. So any
Mm.
Australian guys listening to this, if you can ask a girl out face to face instead of just going to Tinder because it's the
Yeah,
easy option, if you can just ask a girl
yeah,
out face to face, like, oh my God, you will stand out amongst the crowd for sure.
totally. Are you
For sure.
saying I should book a flight now from Canada to Australia?
Yeah, come on down. We've got lots of gorgeous ladies here for you, Mike.
Yeah. Let me ask you, like, do Australian girls find like the Canadian accent exotic? Because like when you guys come down here, you guys sound really exotic to us.
Yeah, look, we love Canadians. We
Oh,
love
perfect.
Canadians.
There you
Yeah,
go.
we
I'll
do.
be looking for the next cheapest flight.
Yeah, absolutely. Come on down. So Mike, it's been so great chatting with you. I know that you help a lot of guys with this. I know you've got books, you've got your program. Can you share a little bit about your program and the sort of people who come to you?
Yeah. So yeah, thank you so much. So I'm sure everyone listening to this has heard of the saying, in life, it's not what you know, it's who you know, right? Your net worth is your network type of stuff. But then, like, you go to school, you learn things like math, physics, chemistry, and no one teaches you how to be social, confident, and charismatic, right? So a lot of guys who struggle socially, it's because it's a knowledge gap. No one taught them these things, the same way that no one taught me, right? So just so it's a learnable skill. And for me, I really specialize with guys who are from the STEM community, because I understand their struggle. I've been there before. I know what it's like. So my program is called the Social Confidence Blueprint. It's a 12-week course that helps guys go from shy to social. We go over the 5 fundamentals. So your minds, changing your mindset, improving your self-image, creating a great first impression, so that you're communicating your best self when people see you right away, managing your anxiety, improving your conversation skills, and designing a life you love. So that's the 5 components that we go through the program. And yeah, 12 weeks long. I mean, as far as I can remember, 5 of my students got married last year who took the program. So that was really cool.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, I went to my first Indian wedding actually, and that was really fun. I don't know if you've been to an Indian wedding. It's so fun. It's so colorful. So yeah, so if you're interested to hear more, check out my sites. I've got books too. You can go to Amazon. You can go to my website. You can check out my books, and get a taste for like what it's like to work with me. The kind of information that I teach, my philosophy and things. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Love it. Thank you so much, Mike.
Thank you, Christina.
Big thank you to Mike Macapinlack for being such a wonderful guest on the show this week. You can find out more about what he does at socialconfidencemastery.com, or simply visit the show notes. There's a link there in your podcast description in your app. Now, before I leave you, a quick reminder to join our Facebook group, The C Method Rockstars. It's a great place to connect with other like-minded individuals, people who follow the podcast and also the work that I do. I pop in every now and again with a Facebook Live video. Did one this morning of giving some networking tips. So if you do want to connect with the community, come on over and join us. I can't wait to meet you. And that brings this week's episode to an end. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. Keep on being awesome, and I'll talk to you next week. My name's Christina Canters, and this has been Stand Out, Get Noticed. Thank you for listening to Stand Out, Get Noticed. To learn more and inquire about the C Method coaching, keynote, and corporate training programs, visit thecmethod.com.